What's going on and how could I help?
So I guess I'm more towards like the beginning of my studies. So I think right now one of my biggest challenges has been actually just feeling encouraged to keep doing logic games because I find myself like even spending like 15 to 20 minutes on one logic game, and it's just I'm like, okay, so I'm going through the study schedule, um the 4 month one that you sent me. And so to get through like the logic game section, it's taking me longer than I thought it would. um like the daily homework, so it can take me like up to like 2 3 hours to just do like those little bit of logic games, which I'm like, wow, I thought this would be so much faster. And some of them like are faster, but it's like it's just been difficult to not get discouraged with it.
I hear that. Well, it'll definitely be faster on test day because they're setting the clock. But the good news is that for now, it's okay. 15, 20 minutes on a single game untimed. You got to give yourself a chance to learn.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's what I have to. I'm trying to remind myself. I tend to be the type of person who just wants to be good at something from the beginning.
Yeah, no, I totally hear that. But so if it's unfamiliar, it's too high a standard to hold yourself to. You'll get there eventually, but you just give yourself a chance to learn the material first,
Hmm. Yeah,
especially if you're just at the beginning.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I have to just remind myself that. And then there's this other thing that I'm running into where there's so many different resources out there, and I think I'm almost overwhelming myself by being like, I'm going to see how like this resource does logic games and this resource to see what sticks more, because I've heard that like that's something that you should do when you're trying to see what works best with your brain. But then I find that I think I'm like, oh, but when I'm actually doing it, I'm like, this resource has to do this, but this has to do this. And then so it's like I kind of freeze up. So I'm trying to figure out what to do then. Like, should I just, I don't know if you would suggest like sticking to one thing and then kind of seeing like growing with that. And then if that isn't working, like trying something else instead of like, let's try this, and this all simultaneously.
Yeah, I've noticed that happening a lot actually with students just because there's more out there than ever before. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you could look up five different sources on how to solve a single game, why wouldn't you? The reason is time. The reason is that
Yeah.
there's a cost to your time, even if the content itself is free. And so I would suggest doing no explanations at all, and or at the minimum, just picking one or two that you find to be consistently useful for you. And
Mm-hmm.
you might ask, how could you do it with none at all? And the answer is redoing and review.
Mm-hmm.
But or maybe you look at one explanation, you see how they solve it, and then you put that aside and do it on your own. And since you're in my course, you have access to all of my videos, and so you
Mm-hmm.
have those as one option. But you can also search YouTube or look for others too and find what works best. But I would find one consistently and stick with that.
Yeah, I think I need to do it. I think when I watch something and it doesn't stick, I'm like, oh well, maybe I'll watch this one and see if it sticks this way. But I think you're right. I think I just need to go back and try it myself. Mm,
What else is going on for you? Are there any other big challenges you see yourself facing?
I think another one is like just the general like finding the time to study, because I work full time, and I'm working from home right now, so it's a little different, like finding those boundaries in between like study time and working time and like leisure time. So I know that like I try to work like an hour in the, or I try to study 1 hour in the morning and then like two in after work, but it's just difficult to do, to be able to actually like get in the mindset of studying after working all day in the same area where I've been now studying. It's like I'm in front of a computer for like 10, 12 hours straight.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. Do you have another space in your house where you could move to?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really tried that in the same spot, but I could see how that works.
could be worth trying. And then if you're able to even work outside, maybe that's an option too, like in the backyard or something. If you have access to something like that, that could be good. I guess another thing would just be to put some time in between. So if there's something else you can do in between work and studying, like dinner, exercise, go for a walk, do something that's not just sitting in that same spot in front of the computer,
Right.
that could be good to just change it up a little bit. And then you could also change the time. So rather than after work, what about before work? What about in between work if you have some downtime during the day? If you have some flexibility, that could be good too.
No, that makes sense. And I guess another thing that I'm also struggling with is, again, to logic games, because I've started with logic games, so everything relates to that, is I don't know whether I should be timing myself at the beginning or if I should just kind of be giving myself all the time that I need. Or, and the reason I ask is because, like, what I mentioned is, like, I'm feeling a little bit discouraged timing myself right now because I'm like, I'm supposed to hit, like, I don't know, I have like this 8-minute goal for myself. But obviously I hardly ever hit it because I'm at the beginning of my studies. So I don't know if it makes sense to be timing myself at all right now.
For now, no. If you're at the beginning stages in the first couple of weeks, forget about timing for now. Just focus on accuracy and deeply understanding the problems. And then speed will come with understanding as you continue practicing.
And I had read a suggestion on Reddit, of course, to just get like a general like intro to logic book and just kind of read to it to become acquainted with logic. And so I was wondering what you think about that, because I was looking at some textbooks online. I'm like, should I spend my study time doing this?
No, that doesn't count as study time. It doesn't count as study time. There's,
it's like
if you're already in the thick of LSAT prep, I don't see a reason to go outside of that for non-LSAT related resources. That's the sort of thing I would say to somebody who is like a freshman in college and they want to get a vague sense of what's involved. I would say get a book on informal logic, but a logic textbook is going to go way beyond what you need and probably just confuse you or scare you more. So I would definitely steer clear of that.
Okay, cool. That's good to know because it's literally in my cart and I was like, should I do this? Yeah, I figured it would take me a really long time to read it anyways.
Yeah, it definitely would.
And for like reading materials, I'm trying to find the best reading materials like outside of like actually studying. I do like to read pretty often, so I don't know if you have any suggestions for that.
Yeah, sure. Two common ones are Scientific American and The Economist. If you want to read dense material that will loosely help with reading comp in some way, but I would do that just as a light thing on the side. I wouldn't count that as actual studying. Okay. And if you like to read, all the better. That'll make it easier to do this sort of thing. But there's so many passages on the LSAT that you could study for the LSAT and not cover all of those. I think you're better off reading the passages than going outside of that. So if you can print them out or photocopy them or just read them, that would be something that would be useful to do. And then if you want to make a drill or exercise out of it, you could look to see what's the main idea, what's the author's opinion, and at least extract that from it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And okay, jumping back to logic games, because I just thought of something. In reviewing a logic game that has taken me, like, I have been able to get the answers correct, but it's maybe taken like 15 minutes. Should I, or do you suggest that I then like redo that logic game to try and like speed up the process, or like, I guess make it more efficient, or because I know there's a, like, it's good to blind review. I just don't know at what stage I should be blind reviewing.
Yeah, you can do it anytime. I mean, I think that for games, it's more about people talk about redoing games, looking at explanations, redoing them again. People talk about doing games several times. I wouldn't redo all games several times. I would only reserve that for the ones that really give you trouble. You might look at an explanation and then, like I said, redo it without looking at that explanation. And you could look at a few different sources to see different ways people go about it. But I wouldn't feel an obligation to do that for every single game, because then it just gets really overwhelming really fast if you put all of that obligation on yourself for all the problems you work through. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my quick take on that. I think reviewing, there's plenty more we could talk about when you get to reviewing and logical reasoning and different ways you can analyze things there. And that can take a bit of time as well. But since you're on games, I'll just leave it there. But again, untimed for now is totally fine. 15, 20 minutes or more for a single game for now is totally fine.
Okay. And at what stage, like, I guess normally, do you, I guess generally, do you start seeing people focusing more on timing than on actually just trying to get it right?
Well, I'll tell you what I suggest, which is
Mm-hmm.
that you spend the earliest phases working untimed to focus on accuracy. And then once you've built the basic familiarity, once you've built a good foundation in games,
Mm-hmm.
then you start doing individual timed games sections. And you'll see this in the schedule. About a month or so
Right.
in, I'll have you
Okay.
move from games to logical reasoning. And then you'll focus on logical reasoning untimed by type, but you'll still be mixing in now timed games sections
Yeah.
to focus on
Okay.
pacing and to focus on obviously getting them all complete in time.
Okay. That's good to know. I did kind of look ahead. I didn't look ahead too much. But all right. I think I will also feel less discouraged if I'm not timing myself right now.
Definitely. I hope so. I hope so. Anything else for today?
One thing it's I'm trying to it's mostly has to do with LSAT prep, but it a little bit outside of it. So I'm choosing in between going to another job, which would give me less time for LSAT studying, but might look really good on a resume, and for law school. And I'm trying to figure out which one I should stay with. Like, should I continue with my job where I have a good amount of time to study because they know I'm studying for the LSAT and they're pretty understanding about that? Or should I go to this other job, which is like, I think it would look very good.
Okay. Well, is the other job really, really, really good? And would you mind sharing what it is?
uh, well, it's not guaranteed that I have it yet. So it's like, I know it's being recorded. So
That's okay. Let's keep it vague and hypothetical.
okay. It's for a big national organization
Okay. Cool.
that does a lot of good work
That's cool. I mean,
in
that
civil
sounds
rights.
nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice. No, that's
Okay.
inspiring. That's awesome. So big national organization that does work in civil rights. I'm sure there's many inspiring ideological reasons why you'd want to work there. And maybe your current job doesn't have those characteristics.
Yeah, it kind of does, but it's just a smaller local
just smaller.
organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then that's still pretty cool that you're doing that now. I mean, I would say that if you're really sure about law school, then I would stick with the current job, just because if they're going to accommodate you with LSAT prep and helping you fit in the time to do that, that's going to better serve your long-term interests. If you take this job with a national organization, that could be awesome for a resume, but law school admissions is primarily LSAT and GPA. So although it looks cool on a resume and maybe you could write a cool personal statement about it, it sounds like the work that you're doing now is pretty cool too. And you could write a great personal statement about what you're doing at the moment too, or what you've done in the past also. So I wouldn't feel an obligation to do that, to take on that new job if you get it, if it means that it's going to adversely impact your LSAT prep.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
And I hate to tell you that because this other job sounds cool, but I'm focusing on the long term for you here.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think of too, like constantly, like, okay, I'd probably only be there for like a year and then hopefully go to law school. So it's, yeah.
And maybe this, I'm just throwing this out there, but maybe there's a way where you could take the new job with the understanding that they're going to respect certain time limited boundaries where you're going to be able to block off time to focus on prep.
Yeah.
If that's just not even in the cards though, then it's a big risk.
Yeah. No, I agree. Unless I can negotiate it, then I don't think it's going to be as good of an option as what I have right now.
All right, well, keep me posted on it. It sounds like you've got good options either way. And we're going to do a personal statement workshop soon in the course. So we could definitely go into a draft of your statement around either one of these jobs or something else altogether.
Yes. That sounds like fun. Do you do it in like a group setting?
Yeah, it will be. It will be a group setting.
Okay.
And the one cool thing is that if you want your statement to be anonymous, we can do that too. So I can workshop it and folks can give feedback and it won't be attributed to you in particular if you prefer.
Awesome. That sounds exciting.
Yeah, definitely. It'll
Okay,
be fun. I'm looking forward to it too.
cool.
Awesome, Vanessa. Well, before we sign off, what would you say is the biggest insight you got from our call today?
I think is to just stay focused for the most part. I mean, I'm a type person who tries to do many things at once, to try and understand it right away, but I know it's going to take time. So stay focused and just keep going.
Perfect. All right. Well, it was great connecting with you. Keep in touch, and I'll see you in class soon.
Yeah, see you soon.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.